Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane and Hurricane HD video blog for Tuesday, the 14th of August, 2012. There is 93L starting to come to life now, out of the deep tropics, oddly enough, but that's what can be expected sometimes when conditions are not favorable where you expect them to be, and then they are more favorable outside of that region. This should develop and eventually to Tropical Storm Gordon and curve around to possibly impact the Azores Islands over in the northeast Atlantic. And that'll be a few days from now. This is TD7's leftovers. We're not able to regenerate at all in the Eastern Caribbean. No surprise there, as conditions have been absolutely hostile most of the season. It will bring some increased precipitation to Central America over the next couple of days, but tropical storm formation not expected out of it. It'll run out of time. This is a very neat graphic. I mentioned this in my written blog today from the Climate Prediction Center, their tropical hazards and benefits outlook for the next couple of weeks. And we see week 1 valid tomorrow through the 21st. Pretty high chance of development associated with 93L and increasing and continuing moisture and heavy rainfall, with maybe this little hatched area here is more of a moderate chance of development for tropical cyclones. The red is high, and then the green is above normal rainfall. So this area is staying unsettled. The coast of Africa there, right along where these tropical waves emerge, also staying pretty wet. Then in week 2, we see maybe less of a chance of development out here across the Atlantic basin, and a tiny area right there in the Bay of Campeche, which I'll show you on the GFS output in just a minute. But overall unsettled weather here in the Western Caribbean and over Central America. This is all related to the Madden-Julian oscillation, this enhanced area of convection and upward motion that moves around the globe. And you can see that on the map here represented by green. Green typically meaning your enhanced phase of the MJO or the wet phase. And the darker the green, the more amplified it is. And you can see right now the analysis showing just very light colors of green through here. The only close to moderate area is in, of course, the Eastern Pacific, where it's been quite busy this hurricane season. For the next few days, still a little bit of green shading or favorable conditions, or slightly more favorable is a better way to put it, in the Eastern Atlantic, with just kind of neutral everywhere else. And then it kind of settles into just slightly negative at day 10 or so. And then by the end of the month, maybe an awakening of favorable conditions across the tropical Atlantic. We'll have to wait and see. You would expect that by the time we get to the end of the month, things would start to get busy just because it's late August. Doesn't always have to be that way, but you would expect that nonetheless, climatology being a factor. So the tropical weather outlook from the Hurricane Center, this area up to 50%. This is the Azores Island chain, and this should move around a little high pressure area sitting out here, go around the side and the top of it, and then eventually go in this direction according to the models. At least most of them show that. And then here's the leftovers of TD7, which was not able to develop here in the Caribbean, and it'll move onshore into Central America, probably pop out in the Eastern Pacific, and who knows, it could develop there. Down in the deep tropics, the intertropical convergence zone, dry and suppressed fairly far to the south. And if you look at, we're going to take a look at the GFS in a minute, and I'll show you why. In the Eastern Pacific, Hector weakening, then you have just general unsettled weather throughout this entire region, but nothing imminent for development there, just low pressure, this monsoon trough, fairly permanent this year, with occasional development every couple of weeks or so, it seems. So looking at the GFS, this is today's 12Z run, valid tomorrow morning. There's the intertropical convergence zone, really pushed to the south. But look, this surface high sitting out here, and this is 93L kind of stuck in it. This is pretty far to the south. Let's see, here's Charleston, South Carolina. It's almost at the same latitude as Charleston, the center of that high. You don't have it sitting up here over the northern Atlantic, a big sprawling high, or one sitting over the northeast United States like this, like we see near the fall. It's just kind of a weird pattern with this high pressure here suppressed to the south, that's squashing all this development down here, the intertropical convergence zone to the south. So just very odd pattern overall. Nonetheless, keep your eye on this area here. This is 93L, and it should go around the high, and then eventually over here towards the Azores Islands. And then, remember that map there that showed just a little hatched area over here in the Bay of Campeche? Watch what happens over here over the next few days. This is 48 hours, 72 hours out. This is valid on Friday morning, and you can see that there is 93L. Now that high pressure area pushed all the way to the latitude of Miami. Crazy. It's just unbelievable. And then the resulting intertropical convergence zone really suppressed to the south as low pressure tries to develop in the Bay of Campeche. So folks over in Mexico here definitely going to want to keep an eye on that. A small system, but something trying to develop there nonetheless. At day 4, here is what could be eventually Tropical Storm Gordon. Those are the Azores Islands right there as it goes around the periphery of this high. It should eventually reach the edge of it and then kind of float off to the north and east. We'll see. You know, sometimes they get stuck and then a big high builds into the north and they come back to the west. Rare, but it does happen. Then we see in the Bay of Campeche here this system trying to develop. Don't be surprised if in the next few days we see a yellow area and then eventually an orange area from the Hurricane Center show up in the Bay of Campeche as that unsettled pattern straddling Central America into the Eastern Pacific does continue. Then at 120 hours, this is valid on Sunday morning, there is what would potentially be Gordon, Tropical Storm Gordon, unless this develops and beats it to the punch. Then another weak system coming off of Africa, fairly high latitude already. And then that high pressure cell, the surface high, really suppressed far to the south. A very, very strange pattern that we're seeing as we approach and get through the beginnings of the heart of the hurricane season. I can't explain it. It's just kind of odd. And until it changes substantially and we get a big kick in the pants to the pattern, we're not going to see any major development in the Atlantic Basin. Very good news for people who have property and interests along the coast. Well, there you have it. That's your hurricane outlook, your video blog for today. And that's it. Nothing else to talk about. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, my website. Always a pleasure to do these videos for you. Hope you learned something from it. And we'll do it again tomorrow.